So over the past year, we have heard of a lot of different reports and articles and statements that lawmakers are going to pass more for the American people. We're going to see more security at the U.S. border. There's going to be more funding for Ukraine and more funding for Israel and more funding for everybody. Well, the American people could be in shock in 2024 because of what Congress is now discussing. I want to address what they're talking about, the change that has happened over the last single day. In the last 24 hours, there's been a big change, a massive shift, and this could actually mean more benefits for the American people, but at the same time, it could mean less for the American people. I know it's confusing, but I'll explain what's going on here, so make sure you watch this entire video and I'll explain exactly what is happening. All I ask is one thing, takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates, and now let's begin. So the first thing that you need to understand is that there's a lot of problems here in the United States. And right now, we're attempting to fix them. Well, the first issue, and this was probably one of the biggest ones, is a government funding bill. Well, yesterday, Congress passed a short-term funding bill to avert a government shutdown. That's the good news. However, and I talked about this yesterday, it's putting more pressure on Speaker Mike Johnson. It's also putting more pressure on the House of Representatives, and it's a cause for concern because if the hardline Republicans decide they want to oust him as the Speaker, well, they can. Right now, we would need 3 Republicans, and every Democrat would need to jump on board, and they could get rid of Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House. Now, this is where things get interesting. I talked about this yesterday, and I said if we do not have a Speaker, the Speaker that comes in temporarily is not going to go and pass a bill on something as big as funding for Ukraine and Israel. And they're definitely not going to touch border security. That's not something you have a temporary Speaker come in and do. That's something that the actual Speaker would do. All right? So, where does that take us from here? Well, here's the problem. Right now, we are seeing Republicans threaten Mike Johnson. But we're also seeing Democrats come forward and they are weighing Mike Johnson's fate. And they could potentially save his job and him from the Republican Party. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, this is a huge deal. This is massive. And this is massive because we could see everything happen over the next year, or we could see nothing happen over the next year. Here's what I mean. Right now, Republicans are trying to potentially oust Speaker Mike Johnson because this deal that he made with President Biden and this deal that he made with Democrats. Well, here's the issue. That deal is keeping the government funded, keeping the government open. If the government were to shut down, many programs would be hurt, many Americans would be furloughed. You would see millions of people getting no income. Even military. They would be working, but they wouldn't be receiving income. That's a concern. Now, here's why this matters, okay? Who the Speaker of the House is going to play a major role as to what happens and what provisions get passed in 2023. Right now, the plan in place is, as of today, is there's a bill for enhanced child tax credits along with business tax cuts. That's on the table, okay? But that's on the table along with additional border security. There has to be something for border security, okay? There's also funding for Ukraine, funding for Israel. But again, let's break those apart. The two things that are tied together is these enhanced child tax credits and funding for Ukraine and Israel, okay? Those two things are together. Here's the reason why that's important. Speaker Mike Johnson is okay with the fact that we're going to send additional money to Ukraine. As far as money to Israel, that's up for debate, but only if that is tied to this business or the funding for the border and for additional border security. If those two things aren't going to happen together, then neither one's going to happen at all. The next one, these enhanced child tax credits, along with this bill for more business tax cuts. Republicans want the business tax cuts. Democrats want the enhanced child tax credits. So you put those two things together. Here's the reason why this is an issue. And it does have a little bit to do with the southern border, but not everything. Right now, Democrats feel that Republicans are getting everything. Everything is a win for Republicans. It's a win that we kept the border, or they kept the U.S. government open, and it's a win for Republicans because they're keeping the funding the same. It's not increasing. It's also putting more pressure on people at the border. This is why Texas is struggling down at the border. And just look at this. Okay, look at this really quick. Texas refuses to comply with Biden administration's cease and desist letter about border access. This is turning into a new fight. But because of all the different discussions, because Texas refusing the Biden administration's cease and desist letter, well, guess what? It's putting more pressure on the administration and on Texas. Well, here's where this thing all comes full circle. Right now, the Democratic Party is trying to save Speaker Mike Johnson because they know he is most likely the only one that's willing to put a bill on the floor of the House that is going to provide more money to the border, provide more money to Ukraine, and provide money to Israel. Those three things. That's what Democrats want. Okay? Democrats do not want policy changes at the border. They don't want more sanctions on Ukraine or on Russia. That's not what they want. They want funding. Okay? So here's where things are getting interesting. Right now, President Biden is trying to bring everybody together. He's trying to bring together these congressional leaders, bring them to the White House so they can talk about Ukraine and the U.S. border deal. Okay? Why? Well, it's because of he sees his chances of winning the next election are slipping away. This is why experts believe it's going to be all or nothing for 2024. Because this is what they're now talking about. Just today, this is what happened. President Biden bailed out another 73,600 people from student loan debt. He canceled about $4.9 billion in debt. Okay? That's huge. Now, who's that going to? Well, you can see right here, it says President Biden said he has canceled debt for public sector workers, including teachers and firefighters. And he did just that. But the concern is, and again, this is where it all comes full circle. President Biden and the Biden administration believe that Republicans are getting all the wins. They're getting every single win. So what they're debating now is, how can Democrats get more? Well, here's how. There's still the bill for border security, but if that bill comes for border security, there has to be more for Ukraine, has to be more for Israel. Those three are tied together. Then, this enhanced child tax credit, along with these business tax cuts, those two things are together. However, the business tax cuts are actually creating a bigger deficit. It's going to cost more money to do the business tax cuts than it is to do the enhanced child tax credits. So, here's where things come back to this. What we now know is that because President Biden promised the American people two things, well, three things really. Nobody making less than $400,000 per year will pay a penny more in taxes. He's kind of done that, but again, not really. Second thing is every Social Security recipient will get a $200 per month boost. He's not done that. He's come out and said that people on Social Security on fixed income have actually gotten a boost because he's lowered their expenses. Not increased their income, lowered their expenses. Well, I guess that kind of works. The third thing, he's going to forgive up to $10,000 for every student loan borrower. That hasn't happened. But this is where they are now talking about this. Right now we're hearing, so far the Biden administration, including today, has provided $136.6 billion in debt relief to 3.7 million Americans. That's not everybody. It's a good chunk, but that's not everybody. There's over $1 trillion in student loan debt. So he's accounted for about 10%, a little bit less than 10%. So here's what we're hearing. As of right now, this bill for the child tax credits, the enhanced child tax credits, and the tax cuts for businesses, Those are being paired together, and now we're potentially bringing in a new bill that could forgive some student loan debt. It will not be to everybody. It will not be up to $10,000. Okay, it will be much smaller than that. But that's now being brought in, and that could potentially be about $100 billion that would go to that. Now, if we bring that in, and then now it's Republicans are looking at like, well, okay, you're getting this, this, and this. We're only getting tax cuts for businesses, and now we're actually getting the short end of the stick. So now Republicans are looking at ways to either cut some of our spending on the federal level, which could mean more cuts for the IRS, or the second thing is additional asks when it comes to border security. So again, all these things are coming together now. The problem is experts believe it's going to be all or nothing in 2024. This is where the American people could be in a shock for this year, because they may get everything that they've wanted over the past couple of years, or we may get nothing at all and everything just falls apart. So that's kind of where we're at this time. I just wanted to fill you in on what's going on as of today. That is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.